Welcome everybody. My name is Dan Hellem. I am a program manager in Azure DevOps. Today we're going to talk about all the new and great things that are happening in Azure Boards. Let's get started. Okay, before we get started, let's quickly talk about the Azure DevOps roadmap. This is the place where you need to go to find all of the latest stuff that's happening within Azure DevOps in general, not only on the roadmap, but the things that we release about every 3 weeks for every sprint. So the first thing to do is just go into your favorite browser, type in Azure DevOps Roadmap. You should see it come up in the results in the top 1 or 2 items. We come over here to Azure DevOps Roadmap. You'll notice 2 things here that I would focus on is obviously the roadmap itself. The roadmap itself talks about all the things that we have coming up over the next quarter to 2 quarters worth of work. Broken down to different initiatives. So here you can see GitHub Advanced Security for Azure DevOps. You can see that we have the new boards experience, which we'll call New Boards Hub, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. You can see here that we have improved boards and GitHub integration. Usually all these sections will have kind of the different features that we plan on implementing, the area that they're in, when it's going to be released. So in this case, you can see that we're releasing out, as early as Q2 of 2022 and as recent as Q1 of 2024. And so they're different, just gives you an idea of the different things that we have done and when they're going to be released. The next thing to focus on then is released features or release notes. So if I come in here to release notes by release date, we do sprints, we do work in sprints. So literally every 3 weeks, we push things out as a feature release. And here you can see, the different dates on when we release things. In this case, April 10th is the most recent. And we basically just give you an idea of the things that we delivered in that sprint across the breadth of the product. So here, if I click on one of these items, it should give you an idea of, what the feature is. Is it in preview? Is it not in preview? How to enroll in that preview? Some screenshots of, what was done and what wasn't done, that kind of thing. And so, again, we do this every 3 weeks, spit out a new release notes as we do that release. The release takes, a few weeks to get to every single organization. So the release notes go right out in the middle of that. So again, release notes are important, and roadmap. Those are great ways to stay on top of the product, what's being done across the breadth of the product, and what things are coming up that you might be interested in. So the first major chunk of work that we can talk about here is New Boards Hub. For context, New Boards Hub is a preview. So I'll come up here to next to my avatar under user settings. You can see preview features. As you scroll down, you should see all the different features that are available. In this case, New Boards Hub should be one of the top ones. New Boards Hub, what we did is we ended up having to rewrite the product on the front end for accessibility reasons, for some compliance reasons, also just maintenance. Azure Boards and Azure DevOps has been around for, it's a fairly mature product. And every once in a while, we had to kind of get in there and rewrite things out to make sure that everything's up to date, make sure we're not using old, JavaScript components and that kind of thing. And so now everything is kind of built with a React front end that you would expect. It's very maintainable. It's very componentized. It's very easy to update, so it should allow us to move faster. It also allows us to get all the accessibility issues done that we needed to get done. That we weren't able to do in the old boards. It's still the exact same product, right? We still have boards and backlogs and sprints, delivery plans, etc. Nothing has really changed there, but you will see it's just a little bit different as far as design goes. There's a little bit more spacing. You can also see like the reflow work that we've done. So as I scroll in, I can actually now, it's usable when I get up to 400% zoom. So you could essentially use these on different form factors besides your desktop. You could use them on tablets. You can use them on phones now a little bit easier than you were before. But again, it's all really the same product. It's just a new front end. This work has taken us a couple of years actually to go do. We've had a team working on it full time for a couple of years. It's been in preview now for about a year and a half. And we are almost getting to the point where we're going to turn it on as a default for all our users across the entire service. So right now it's about enabled for about half of them. So by the time you see this video and we get into mid or early summer of 2024, most customers should have it turned on as a default experience. But you can certainly turn it off if need be, if you run into issues. But we don't expect that to happen at this point. And again, it should be available for everybody here in the next couple of months. So getting into our first feature that we did, again, this is specifically in new Boards Hub only. So we're going to go into Boards. This is what we call our kind of move to position and column and swim lane on the boards. Let's go to user stories. So you can imagine if you're a large organization, a large team, you may have lots and lots of work items on your backlog, lots of items on your board. You may have multiple swim lanes, you may have multiple columns. It's not necessarily easy to drag and drop things from one section to another. And so we try to make some usability shortcuts to make that easier for you. So let's kind of walk through that. So the first thing we can do is if we go into the column or the card itself, we can do move to column, move to swim lane, move to iteration was always there, and move to position. So move to position allows you to basically move it up and down in that column. So in this case, I want to move story 1 down to the bottom of the list. I'll go down to 5. We'll go ahead and save changes, and that'll move it down to the bottom. I can also, I can also move this to a different swim lane if I want to. So if I want to move it down to our new swim lane, move down to the demo lane. I can also then move it within that swim lane to another column. I want to move it over to active, etc. So again, this just makes it a little bit easier for you to move things around on your board without necessarily having to drag and drop. Drag and drop is obviously fairly straightforward if you have a small backlog, but if you have a really large backlog with lots of items on there, these features make it a lot easier to kind of move things around. The next thing we can take a look at is what we call our work item history filter. So if I open up our story 1, I want to go take a look at our history tab on the work item. Most work items will have dozens, if not hundreds, of changes to or revisions made to that work item. And sometimes, you might want to go dig in and kind of audit that. Who made what changes? When did this thing get changed from new to active? Who changed what and what field? In order to do that today, you'd have to kind of go through and just scroll through them and look at them and try to figure it out. So we added a little toggle up here to allow you to filter by keyword, by person who updated it, and by field to kind of break down to figure out, what changes were made. So I can come in here. This is a demo, so it's only me, but you could certainly look at, who made what changes. You'd see a list of all the people who made changes. You can click on those. You can take a look at the different fields that were changed. So maybe you want to look at the state field that was changed. When was it changed from one state to another? You might want to look at, iteration path as well, right? Those are different things you can take a look at for fields. You can also take a look at keywords. So maybe you want to look at when was it changed to new to active. I can then come in here and take a look at all the different things that have a keyword in there of active in that history and take a look at those. So again, just another easy way for you to kind of filter through your history and find out who made what changes and when those changes were made. Next thing we can take a look at about here is the change link type. So change link type, if we take a look at the different links that we have here on the work item, and I might want to go ahead and change this link type that's a predecessor from a predecessor to related. Historically, if I had to go do this, I would have to basically cut and paste the ID. I would then remove the link. I would then go in and add a new link, add the link type, cut and paste, or paste that ID back in there and resave it, which is a lot of steps to just go ahead and change the link type. So now, instead of doing that process, we can just come in here to our links. I can come in here to the link type itself. I can come in here and say, I want to edit this link. You used to have just comment. Now we actually have the ability to change the type. And so if I want to go ahead and change this from, say, predecessor to related, I can do that, hit save. and now is it's changed from predecessor to related. All right. Next thing we'll talk about is hierarchy with the filtering. So let's go ahead and go to our backlog. Within our backlog, you can see now if we come in here and do a filter, and let's say we want to filter on like keyword of 1, you'll see that it flattens the list out, right? So I don't necessarily know if I come down to this task, I don't know what story that's related to, which then I don't know, well, how that's related to what feature, versus how is that related to one epic. So it makes it kind of hard to understand what things are related to what. And then if I wanted to reorder within a particular couple tasks inside a story, I can't really do that today. We've added the ability to allow you now to filter, yet keep the hierarchy in place. So if I come over here to my settings and I do keep hierarchy with filters and I turn that on, now, you know, you don't see a difference here when I open it up until I start typing. Once I start typing in 1, it'll then go ahead and look for the bottom at the bottom level, right? Like look at tasks, look at stories, look at features. Does it have 1 in it? If it does, it'll put that in place and then show you the hierarchy as you roll up. So here you can see I was at task 1. Now I can see what story that's related to, which I can then see what features related to and what epics related to. I can also, you know, within that particular, within the section that I'm in, I can move things around and reorder if I want to reorder. I can then, you know, if I want to move these features around, I can do that as well. And so it allows me to kind of reorder within the filtering. Now, obviously, if I had 100 features in there and only 1 met the filtering criteria or 2, I'm only reordering within those 2, so it kind of gets kind of weird. But it does allow you to kind of move things around and gives you a little bit more flexibility. All right, next we can talk about is swim lane rules in colors. So let's go back to our, here to our filter, go back to our board. So here you can see I don't really have any swim lanes set up. So I want to go ahead and create a swim lane. And the way I want to set up these swim lanes is I can kind of set up rules on how I have rules set up for styles. So for example, if priority is 1 or 2, and that might be a high priority lane. If it's in 3 or 4, it might be a low priority lane. Or maybe if it's in 3, it goes in the medium, and then 4 just kind of stays in the normal one. And so what we can do is we can set up lanes and set up rules to go ahead and drop those things in depending on how you change the values of your work items. You can do it for assign to, you can do it for a number of different things. So let's go in here and kind of just show you how that might work. We'll go into our settings, we'll go into swim lanes, and we're going to go ahead and add a new swim lane. In this case, I want my swim lane to be below the default lane, and then I want to go ahead and put in, so we're going to call this high priority. And I'm going to change the high priority, which needs to be red because everything in high priority needs to be red. We're going to then say anything that is priority, which is if it's less than, let's say 2, we'll go ahead and drop it into that lane. So anything that's in priority 1, priority 0, priority 2, that's a high priority lane. Anything in 3 or 4 is in a lower priority lane. So we'll go ahead and hit save. And now you can see here that I now have a high priority lane. It automatically moved anything that was in priority 1 over into that bucket. Actually, so since I did less than 2, if it equals to 2, it should still show up in the other one. If I move this to 1, it'll automatically drop it in. If I move this to 2, it should automatically move it back up. So you can do a number of cool things here. And obviously the colors make it nice and easy. So if you have everything kind of collapsed, it's easy to see which lanes you're working through. But again, the rules are very much similar to styling rules, where if you're changing the colors of your cards, now you can do the same thing for swim lanes. All right, one of the more interesting ones here now too is features that we release is called automated team rules. So let's go into our backlog. And so you can see here, I have a number of different items. Actually, I'm going to go into Epic's backlog, a little bit easier to see. Let's close out our filter. Let's go into this Epic 3. So here you can see I have a number of Features, I have a number of stories. Those stories have tasks. We've seen a lot of customers who run into an issue, or not run into an issue, but want to see things a little bit more automated than they have today, right? So if I wanted to open one of these tasks, in theory, if the task is open, so is the story. And if the story is open, so is the feature. And if the feature is open, so is the epic, right? Those are means that are active. Same thing if I'm closing things out. So if I close out all these tasks, is it safe to say that the story should be set to resolved or closed? And I'm going to do this on a number of different levels. I'll probably want to automate some of these things, like when my tasks are closed, to close out my story. And maybe I want to set my feature to resolve, but I don't necessarily want to close out my epic, right? That's something that I want to do manually. So you can allows you to kind of set these rules and levels depending on the backlog level that you're at, and then also depending on the team you're at. One team might work one way, another team might work another way. So the way we kind of laid this out is, if we, let's go into our stories backlog first, and we'll go into our settings. And you can see up here over on the left, we have automation rules. Here I set up a rule that says, I want you to activate the parent when at least one child has been activated. So that means, so if I have any tasks that go from new to active, that would automatically set my story to active. Same thing with completed or resolved. When I resolve, when the children are complete, I want to then mark the parent as resolved. So in this case, if my tasks are all done, I want you to automatically set my story to resolved. And I need to do this and set this at each level of the backlog. So here I am in story. So that's taking care of kind of like the tasks and the story part of things. If I want to go into then features and look at those rules, that's the same thing, right? Where I'm saying when the stories are, when a story opens, mark the feature is open. When a story is completed, or all the stories are completed, mark the feature as resolved. So I've set at that level, and then I also need to go to the epics level where I can set things. And so the epics level, I'm going to do things a little bit different. I probably will allow you to mark, in this case, I want the epic to be marked as active if any of the children are marked active. But I don't want to be automatically closing or completing or resolving the epic when the features are all marked as completed. This is something that I want to do manually. I don't want to be monkeying with the epics, because those are bigger rocks of things that I want to do. So now that I have my rule set up, we can kind of just walk through how this might work, right? So we'll take a look at epic 3. We'll take a look at this feature. Let's rename this feature so we know what we're talking about. Feature demo, we'll call it. And then we'll have our stories, and we'll do story demo as well, just so we can keep track. And then we also have our tasks. So here in this case, I have a bunch of new tasks, and I want to go ahead and I'm going to open this task up. As soon as I say this should automatically go ahead and set the story to active as well. And in this also case, as soon as the story is set to active, because of the rules that we have, so should the feature and so should the epic. So you should see like a little chain of events happen here. So ahead and hit save. You can see that boom, that's been set to active. The story went set to active. The feature was set to active. And now the epic is also active. So we went ahead and did that chain of events. If we want to go ahead and here now is close these tasks out. Set this to closed. This will automatically now set my story to resolved, but since it's only one story has been solved, nothing else should affect the features and nothing else should affect the epic. So now that went ahead and set my story to resolved. So again, these are nice little ways that kind of help automate kind of the things that you're doing, and it gives you the flexibility to not only do it at the team level, but also at the different backlog levels, depending on how you work. The last major thing that we can talk through about from feature perspective in New Boards Hub is the Markdown editor that we have for comments. So let's go back and grab a work item. We're going to just go back to boards because it's easier to see. We're going to open up story 1 again. So you can see here by default, we can go ahead and add comments, and the comments are going to be in HTML. You can see that we have the ability to switch to the Markdown editor as we see fit. We're giving you the ability to change how you want to do comments and edit those comments. You can have the Markdown editor turned on for some of them. You can have them turned on for others. That allows you to kind of pick and choose when you add a comment, which editor you want to use. And then it's sticky, right? So if it's always going to remember my HTML one, no matter what work item I'm in, if I switch it to Markdown, every new comment I add will be in Markdown. So if we take a look at how this kind of works, so let's just go ahead and add, hello world. Let's put that in bold. Oops, wrong button. Put that in bold. And then we'll just add a list of items. We'll just do item 1, item 2, item 3, and get rid of the bold. Right? So here I might have some comments that I've already saved. Right? And so now I can come in here if I want to edit this comment. I can then convert this comment over to Markdown. And so this allows me to change existing comments that might be in HTML over to Markdown. So now I can go ahead and convert this comment. It does a best preview that it can to convert, right? So the more complex your HTML is, the harder it is to convert that to full fidelity Markdown. But obviously this is a simple example. It's pretty easy to go do. So we'll go ahead and hit convert. You can see now that we've added the Markdown into the comments itself, and once I'm ready, I can go ahead and hit update. So now this comment is now in Markdown. Once you move to Markdown, you can't go back to HTML. So the Markdown is set for that particular comment. Now you can obviously add new comments in HTML if you'd like, but existing comments that are in Markdown, we don't allow you a path to switch back and forth in between HTML and Markdown for that particular comment. So that one's set, great. Now if I want to switch to Markdown editor all the time for all my new comments, I can do so. And again, the editor is pretty much the same. I can still do, I can do all the things that I would expect to do. I can type in hello world, just like I did before. I can manually put in the Markdown tags, or I can put in, use the little GUI editor to go ahead and do that. I can do same things I would do today, where I can do pound mentions, and those work just fine, etc. So, and again, once I save this in Markdown, I can't really switch it back to HTML. There's no change to that. But again, I can switch to the HTML editor if I want. So if I want to switch back to HTML editor, it'll stay that way, and any new comments will be in HTML, or I can just stay in Markdown. This is part of New Boards Hub only as well. This one is right now still in preview. We're waiting for New Boards Hub to be turned on as a default into the certain areas that we're turning it on in, and then we'll flip the switch to allow you to have the Markdown editor as well. So the rollout's a little bit behind New Boards Hub, but it is ready to go as is. And once we kind of get New Boards Hub on turned on as default, Markdown editor will just come in for free. The last thing I'd like to talk about is our GitHub integration. The GitHub integration has been in place with Azure Boards for several years. But now we're actually trying to close some of those gaps that one would expect that if their repos are inside of Azure DevOps, for example, there's some very, very good traceability there. We want to improve that traceability story when your repos are in GitHub. So there's a bunch of stuff, work that we've been working on over the last several months. Some of these items are in preview. Again, encourage you to take a look at the roadmap and the release notes of which items that are in preview, which ones are not, if you want to opt in. I'm going to walk through all of them right now that we actually have either available as GA or in preview, and just kind of walk through what's available. So the first thing we want to do is obviously we need to create that connection. And one of the first things that we did, or one of the improvements that we made, is around the GitHub connection itself. Historically, if you had, let's say, thousands of repos inside your GitHub organization, when you go out and search for the repositories that are in that repo, if you had thousands of them, things would come down to a halt. They would basically stop. The UX would, the problem would be is we go out and we try to fetch all of them at once. So the UX would either slow down and be unresponsive for several minutes or even longer. And in some cases, it would actually time out. And so this isn't the greatest example here, but because I only have a few repositories, but what we did is we changed the mechanism on how we actually go search and find those repos to be a little bit smarter and using the right search APIs provided by GitHub. And so now we go out and pull maybe the top 100 based on your search criteria, and that allows you to kind of go search and find the repos that you're looking for without having the risk of timeout. So you can have, again, those thousands of repos inside an organization at GitHub, and the search APIs will not fall down. You should be able to go ahead and sort through them and find the repos that you want and that you're looking for. So in this case, I'm just going to grab, I can just kind of show you how the search works. But if I just type in build, that's going to go out, it's going to go back, it's going to fetch the information from GitHub, find the one that I'm looking for, and we'll add that in. Okay, so pretty straightforward. The next part is let's talk about the traceability improvements. So there's two ways to approach it. We'll start with the second one first. So the first one we'll do here is we'll go ahead and get the ID. And we're going to go into and make a change inside of my project. So here I'm just going to make a change in the repo inside of GitHub. I'm just going to remove some stuff. I'm going to go ahead and do that commit. So here I'm going to use the 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 syntax to, and this is what provides the link from a commit or a pull request in GitHub, and that's going to link back to the 78777 work item ID inside of Azure DevOps. So here I'm going to go ahead and create the commit. I'm also going to create a new branch and to start a PR. So this is going to just be demo, propose the changes. So there, I created a commit. If we come back and actually look at the work item itself, you can actually see the commit there, and it'll link back to that directly. And now we can also then go ahead and create a pull request. So what's changed? The first thing you'll notice here is obviously the work item will run, or the bot will work in the background once you do the 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀. It looks for the syntax and creates that link. So now you can see that the link was created. And so that shows up on the work item. That hasn't really changed much. You'll notice over here on the right side in the development section, this is new, where we create an 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀78777. We provide the links in here. So if you have more than one link, they'll show up there. That's fine. You can also notice here that we're running a check. And so if I come back here and look at my work item, I do need to refresh this one in this case. We'll open it up. And now you can see that I have a pull request that's open. It's running, and I have some checks running that are queuing up and running. And so as those queues run, or status check, I'm sorry, not queues run, the status checks run, it'll go ahead and let you know when those status checks are completed, or if they failed on the work item itself. We can also see if there's a review required. So we're showing a little bit more information. That information more aligns with the items that are like in the pull request here, right? I can see, a review is required. The checks have been successfully run. If I come back to my work item, refresh the page here real quick, you can see that the check status has been successful. So again, we're just providing a little bit more clarity on the work item itself about that pull request. So those are the two new things, right? We talked about the 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 syntax, and we talked about how those links show up on the right side, and then obviously the checks and more PR information that shows up on the work item itself. I'm going to go ahead and merge this PR and complete it. And we'll go ahead and delete that branch. So now the PR is completed, everything's done. Again, we can come back here and look at that work item, and you can see that the PR has been merged and everything's kind of ready to go and complete. So let's kind of complete that one. We'll start up another one. So that's one way of approaching it, right? I do my code inside of GitHub. I do use the 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 syntax. Using that 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 syntax creates those links for me, and then the changes that we made for the PR status. Another way to go about this is what happens if I go ahead and I create a pull request, but I don't link it through using 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀. Maybe I have existing pull requests I want to link to, or there's a pull request I didn't know about that I want to link the work item to, or I just didn't do it in that order. So we'll go ahead and here and create a change to some code again. So here we're going to make another quick change. We're going to go ahead and commit the change. We'll call this demo-2. So here we're basically doing a commit, but we're not going to do 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀, and yet we're still going to go ahead and kick off a pull request. So the pull request is started. Obviously, you don't see any links here because we didn't do the 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀 linking. You won't see any links, obviously, on the work item itself either. And so to link up from the work item back to the pull request, we can come into the work item and say, link to commit or pull request. We can also do this through add link and select the different type, right? Whether it's pull request or commit. In this case, we're going to do pull request. Historically, what we would have to do is we'd have to come back to the pull request, cut and paste this URL, come inside here where it says paste URL manually. There's a manual way of doing it. You'd add it in, you would check it to make sure it's legit. You go ahead and add the link. We've provided a little bit better experience now to go do that. So instead of cutting and pasting and going back and forth between two different browsers, I can then go ahead and grab the repo. In this case, I only have one repo linked. And I can go ahead and look for the pull request that are available in that repository. So here you can see we allow you to connect to any pull requests that are active and then pull requests that have already been completed. And so you can see the one that's active here that we just talked about just a second ago, which is the update 𝗦𝗲𝗀𝗀𝗀𝗀JSON. You can see it here that it's open, but you can see these other ones that we've done previously that are closed out. So here I'll go ahead and add it. Go ahead and add the link. And again, it provides you the same information as if you linked it the other way, right? Where we show you, the checks, the PR status, that kind of thing. I come back into my work item. I can now merge it. And once we go ahead and refresh, mess that up. So in that case, I forgot to save it before I actually did the refresh. But now you can see that it was merged, and you can see the pull request information. So that's it. The main three things here are scaling. So if you have thousands of repos, it'll allow you to do those connections without being timed out. AB pound links will generate on the pull request itself. And then you can see those on the right side in the developer section. And then we can also see the pull request details, a little bit more details about like status checks and where the PR is and whether it needs to be reviewed, etc. So a little bit more information about the pull request on the work item itself. And then the last one is if I want to add the link to the pull request directly from the work item, I now have a search experience to go do that in. So these are all the great things about GitHub integration. Again, please take a look at the roadmap and take a look at the release notes for what's in preview and what's out in GA. And we're going to continue adding value to the integration in the months to come. So that's it. Those are all the new features and things that we've been working on for Azure Boards over the last 6-8 months. Just a quick recap here. New Boards Hub is going to be turned on as the default experience for all organizations by the time we get into roughly around late May into early June. About half of our customers are on that today, and that'll obviously increase where everybody will have that turned on. Everything on there with the little check marks next to them have been shipped already. Those are GA as part of New Boards Hub. So as long as you have New Boards Hub on, you can use those. If we take a look at the ones near the bottom there for the GitHub integration, the first one there where you search and select for PRs and commits from the work item, instead of doing the cut and paste of URLs, that is available today for everybody. And then those last three are items that are available for preview. So I encourage you to take a look at the release notes, take a look at the roadmap. You can see blog posts that I do on a regular basis as well, where you can reach out to me directly and we can get you added into those previews. There's still plenty of time to get early access. Appreciate the time. Those are all the great new things around Azure Boards, and we'll talk to you soon.